Election day is getting closer, and we are continuing our series of interviews here on 207 with the candidates for major office in Maine. With us today, the Democratic incumbent running for re-election in Maine's 2nd Congressional District, Jared Golden. Thank you for coming in. Good to have you here.
Good to be here.
You introduced a bill in September that would impose a 10% tariff on all goods and services coming into the United States from other countries. Now, most economists, the overwhelming majority of economists, say that tariffs are not a good thing, that the consumer in America ends up paying them, and that tariffs drive up inflation. Why do you think this would be a good idea?
Well, I always think it should kind of make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, Rob, when you see such full consensus among economists or experts to say, nearly all of them out there saying tariffs are bad, always bad. Life is far more nuanced than that, and I think you got to look at the intent behind them and what are you trying to accomplish. So I want to see more manufacturing and more local consumption of American-made goods, and tariffs can certainly help with that. I also think right now, where we see interest rates starting to come down, inflation a little more under control, there's concerns about unemployment going up. One way that you can combat that is tariffs, which will put pressure downward on that concern by helping to create more jobs. Generally, when you see a good tariff structure, you will find that you have a high rate of employment. You know that though, any good that comes in that costs, say, $1,000 now, put a 10% tariff on it, it's going to cost $1,100. Doesn't that cost end up being passed on to the consumer? I'll try and come at this from a different direction. Most people, if you ask them, do they like where the American economy is? Do they feel like it's been working for them? And I'm not just talking in the last couple of years, but decades. People will say no. They feel like the good kind of middle class building jobs that used to be in production have gone away. People have had to go and search for lower paying jobs in the service sector economy, an economy more focused on Wall Street, on Silicon Valley. And so, I think it calls into question all these economists that say, oh no, everything is great, everything's been fine, we can't go down that road. And we have other countries out there, like China, like some of our allies, like Germany, Japan. They've all had protectionary policies with tariffs in place meant to make sure that they're keeping their manufacturing jobs in their countries. And that's what I think the United States needs to start doing now as well.
Right now, the United States has an economy that's growing faster and more vigorously than China's, than Germany's, than England's, than France's. So something is working right here. But you raised an interesting point about the inequality.
You're talking about GDP, though.
Yeah.
And where's that money going? Who's getting that profit?
You raised an interesting point about inequality, which has certainly widened in this country in past decades. How would you address that? How do you make the flow of money, the flow of income more equal, since that is one of the things you'd like to see?
Well, again, we're talking about tariffs, and I'll just stay on that a little bit. This focus on an economy that is focused on making things, on manufacturing. These tend to be higher paying jobs. And so I think that's one of the most important things for doing something about inequality. It can't be a coincidence that where we see the erosion of the middle class, we also see all of these manufacturing jobs going overseas because of the model that was adopted several decades back with NAFTA, with trade deals, with getting rid of tariffs, something the United States used to actually have in place. It was a strategy to focus on the type of economy that we would have. And so better paying jobs can come out of that. Of course, we've talked, you and I, about a tax code that will take money away from millionaires and billionaires and make sure that it's getting redistributed down to support the working class.
I was reading one account of the bill that you introduced in September, and the article, forget where it was, might have been The Economist, said this bill doesn't have any chance of passing. And that may or may not be true, but we do know for a fact that Congress right now has been extraordinarily unproductive, has been for a few years or longer. And this is because Congress is so bitterly divided, and that reflects the American public being so bitterly divided. What can be done to try to bridge these divides and create more bipartisanship?
We'll just keep talking about tariffs for a minute, if you don't.
No, I want to move on from tariffs, because we've talked about tariffs a lot.
Yeah, but as a way to answer your question a little bit, Rob, if they're so bad, then why did the Biden administration leave all the tariffs in place? Why have they actually added to them rather than taking them away? And I think you see a developing consensus right there that actually undermines what economists are saying. When you've got one White House that says we're going to put these tariffs in place, and then another one comes in and leaves them in place and adds to them, I think you got to pay attention to that. And so the bill can't pass, they say, but the consensus out of the White House now for 8 years has been leave them in place. So they can be put into place by whoever's in the White House, or Congress could act and get on board with this. In regards to how we get things to work, I know that there's a lot of gridlock and partisanship, and it sometimes seems like there's no compromising and working together. But look at this Congress. We've actually in the House of Representatives seen when the budgets have had to be passed, which they must be, when we had to get a deal to avert the debt ceiling crisis, which was pending a little over a year ago. Big bills like aid to Ukraine and Israel. All of that work has come about with a minority of the majority party and a majority of the minority party voting together to govern. So I actually think that there's good evidence that we can work together, and we are working together, and we just need to make sure that more people continue to take that approach and do the right thing.
All right, we've got to let that be the last word. Jared Golden, thanks for coming in. We appreciate you being here as always.
Thank you.
Again, Congressman Jared Golden running for re-election in Maine's 2nd District. You can find more information about him and his campaign in the 207 section of our app or website. Stick around, we'll be back right after this.